As Luca prepares to take his last breath, his mind drifts. Against the force of his will, he lies to himself, to the first time he met her. It's funny how certain details stick to memory better than others. The palette of the scene in his memory's eye is fuzzy, and he can't tell you whether she wore a t-shirt or sundress when she introduced herself, much less what color. But the feeling in his gut he remembers as clear and real now as it was on that day. He wants to throw up. Maybe it's the waves beneath him tonight, still visible even in the cloak of midnight, that triggered that sensation of nausea. Maybe it's the height that he made extra sure would summon the requisite G-force to kill him upon landing. But he never feared heights, nor thought much about the sea. No, this is a specific kind of drowsiness, the contours of which fit unmistakably with his memory of that day 9 years ago, when he sat aboard a bus next to a ponytailed stranger, ready to hurl his breakfast out the window and over the Cordilleran mountainside. Motion sickness? The then stranger asked, though his present mind can no longer see what she looked like through fresh eyes. Is it obvious? He replied, a weak smile on his face that would fail to convince anyone that he was feeling anything other than miserable. She took off her headphones, swept some loose hair to the side of her face, and reached for her backpack under the seat in front of her. Her hand rummaged inside, then emerged, holding a strip of pills that looked worn and well-traveled. She held it towards him, above the empty seat that separated them. Here, take this. It's Dramamine. His eyes widened as he grasped for it, ripped open the foil, and placed the pill on his dry tongue. Water, she interrupted, holding out a plastic bottle. He muttered his thanks and drank the pill down, tasting a hint of her banana lip balm on the sip. Boats and planes kill me, she said as he returned the Dramamine strip. I can't count how many times I've thrown up inside an airplane bathroom. I've never had a problem on the road, though. I don't know how the science of it works. It's the opposite for me, Luca said. With one eye still closed, he peered at the scenery outside the window, forest and concrete flowing out into the sun-painted horizon. A beautiful sight, if his insides would let him appreciate it. I think you got the better deal, he said. Road trips give more interesting views than endless clouds and endless sea. No way, she said. Have you ever been on the Pasig ferry? The moment when it makes the final turn into Escolta station, even drunk on nausea and the stink of the river, I get goosebumps. Maybe it was his mood, but he couldn't grasp what she meant. What kind of glory could she see in the weary visages of old Manila set against polluted waters? I think we have different tastes, he remembers saying, long before that phrase would come to take on a different meaning for them. I'm Luna, by the way, she said, extending her hand. Hey, Luna, I'm Luca. To Luca in the present, viewing through the lens of memory, it feels strange to hear himself call her Luna. This was before she became Moonbug, and eventually just Bug when no one else was around. Luca, she repeated, a faint smile creeping up the corner of her lip. That smile that, over the years, would enchant and enrage him in turn. Hey, maybe we're not so different after all. The Dramamine won't kick in for another 30 minutes, she said. You want me to keep you distracted? They continued talking in hushed tones, about what he can no longer remember. But 30 minutes became 4 hours, and by the time the bus made its final stop at their destination, they had both inched from the opposite sides of their 3-row seat towards the center, where she napped with her head on her neck pillow on his shoulder. That night, they met again on the beach of the resort where he stayed, and under the glow of the stars they laid and rambled about the things they wanted to bring into this world. Her through her music, him in the halls of industry. She had a light that pierced holes through the fog around him. A fog that had built up from the past year's burnout, mixed with that day's alcohol and nausea and pills. In the years that followed, at dinner parties, they would talk about the day they met as though it was something out of a rom-com. They would laugh, as if on cue, between each story beat. But on good days, they felt it without irony, that they were enchanted somehow, that it was too good to be true. And of course it was. Long before they betrayed each other, the magic had given way to arguments and angry silence, and the boredom of people who had come to know each other all too well, and somehow didn't know each other at all. By the time he found her in bed with another man, the love between them was long dead. Luca remembers wanting to feel heartbroken about her infidelity, but the anger he felt was something else. It was the desperate fear of a man who had suddenly lost the ability to lie to himself about being unhappy. Luca catches his thoughts wandering. This was not what brought him here on this night. He would swear it on his life, if his life still meant something to him. Standing on the edge of a quiet bridge and ready to jump, Luca reminds himself that Luna was in the distant past, and is neither to blame for bringing him here, nor a reason to stay alive. He reminds himself that years have passed, and he has moved on. He is here because tomorrow, what is left of his world will fall apart, and he doesn't have the strength to face it. The bank accounts are empty now, and his business partners have gone silent, leaving him to deal with the fallout. Staff finding out they no longer have jobs, investors rushing to chase their money, his face on the news as the SEC opens its investigation of fraudulent practices under his watch. A more shameless person could recover from it with a bit of time. Then again, a better man wouldn't be in this situation at all. Luca would be ashamed to take a coward's way out if the alternative wasn't so unbearable. And yet, with all the noise of the past few weeks, his mind keeps returning to Luna and that day 9 years ago. And beneath the layers of desperation and fear that brought him here, Luca hears an inner voice that tells him to do it, to jump, not so he can escape, but so he can show her, after all these years, the consequences of her betrayal. A final fuck you. He's disgusted at himself for even thinking it. That's enough, he says to himself out loud, as if it makes a difference. That's enough. Luca jumps. He closes his eyes and readies himself for his last few seconds on Earth, the last bit of discomfort as gravity pulls him down to meet the stiff water. Instead, he feels a tug at his collar, an arm grabbing him around his chest, the light of the city flashing in when his eyes open in surprise, right before everything goes black. Luca wakes up with a numbness in his head. He looks around. To his right and below him, a black leather couch over which his body is sprawled. To his left, a young brown-haired, freckled white woman dressed in a dark blue button-down shirt sits, hands held together on a wooden desk, eyes locked onto his as he regains consciousness. "You're awake," says the woman. "Can you tell me your name?" Luca, he says almost automatically. His mind, still floating between conscious and empty, hasn't awakened enough to actively question where he is. Luca Isidro. "Good morning, Mr. Isidro," says the woman. "You can call me Anna. I'd like to ask you a few questions." Luca pushes himself upright. He notices that his jacket is gone and his pockets emptied. Can I ask some questions?" "Of course," says Anna. "I'm sure you're wondering why you're here." There's a knock on the door. Anna stands up, walks over, and opens it. An older man, Filipino, enters wearing a green polo shirt, holding a glass of water. "For you," says Anna. Luca accepts the glass. He looks at the man, who walks over to another chair placed next to Anna's desk. And Luca remembers seeing a flash of his face from earlier that night as he lost consciousness on the bridge. The man's arm grabbing him right at the moment he jumped. "Evening, Mr. Isidro," the man says with a smile. "You know, we almost lost you there on the bridge." The man's aloofness pierces through Luca like a break in a dam, and questions flood his mind. He can barely put words to them, save for a few that are screaming out. Why is he here? Who are these people? What do they want? Why did they stop him from jumping? Is this real? Is he alive? Luca stammers, then decides to take it a step at a time. He looks at Anna and asks, "You were going to tell me why I'm here?" Anna nods. "That's right. Pardon my associate. Elmer is just passionate about his work and doesn't like to lose people to their own demons. You're here, Mr. Isidro, because you've been chosen. Chosen to play a part in what may be the most important project in humanity's history." More questions flood through Luca's head, but he remains silent. As his eyes grow less foggy, he realizes just how young Anna looks. Like you could believe she was an awkward college intern if she didn't speak with such uncanny self-assurance. "Before we can go into specifics, however," says Anna, "I'd like to ask you a few things. Is that all right?" Luca struggles to make sense of the situation. What could these people want from him? Is it about the money? The business? Anyone paying enough attention that they're following him this closely would know that there's nothing there. An absurd train of thought runs through him. Is this organ trafficking? No, they wouldn't waste time asking questions. Anything they need to know about his body, they can figure out without keeping him conscious and unbound. A cult? The way Anna spoke felt religious almost, even cult-like. Anna interrupts. "Mr. Isidro, why did you attempt to take your life last night?" Luca thinks. If he were to tell them the real answer, how could they use it against him? If they were a rival corporation, perhaps, sniffing out their weakness? It's a stretch for a company to go this far. Government investigators? Too unconventional. Inadmissible in court, right? He keeps it open-ended. "I couldn't take it anymore." "Can you elaborate?" "Can you?" Anna and Elmer glance at each other. "I'm sorry, I don't know who I'm talking to," says Luca. "Whatever it is you're after, if it was enough for me to want to end things, why would I share it with some strangers?" Anna nods. "I understand," she says, "and I apologize for being reticent. What I should have shared is this. Mr. Isidro, if you want to take your life, we can release you right now and leave it to you. If you've changed your mind and want to live, you can walk out of here, no questions asked, and continue living as though last night never happened. It's said that for most people, just the attempt to take one's life is enough to remind them that they want to continue living. If that's the case for you, then we're happy to live with the knowledge that Elmer's intervention saved one life last night. But what we want to offer you, Mr. Isidro, if you'll take it, is a second chance. A real second chance. A blank slate, except better. A new start, but with enough resources to live any life you want to live." Luca tries to anticipate where she's going, but he hits dead end after dead end. Whatever it is these people are doing, it's beyond what he can piece together by himself. He relents. "What's the catch?" "A chance that you might die instead," says Anna. "But my guess is that that won't be a problem for you, will it?" Luca takes a second to think, but he knows the answer.